Cyberpunk Jordan.
Hello, my gummy bears! My name is Jordan, also known as CJ, and welcome back to Jordan's Soapbox, the show where I talk about anything that I want to talk about. Last time on the show, I demonstrated how bold creative choices were a commonality in Archie Sonic, such as with the insanity of Dr. Eggman, helping to make the comic as interesting and wonderful as it was. But I also mentioned in that episode that sometimes these bold creative choices could be for the worse. Examples are infinite, such as the time when Sonic and Sally weren't a romantic couple anymore, 'cause reasons. That what were they thinking attempt at an Image Archie Sonic crossover, yes, that was real, and the horror of Sonic Live. But I have a creative choice today that I consider the most ill-advised, stupid, controversial, and worst creative choice the comic could ever make. I'm talking about the fallout of the Genesis arc, where Sally Acorn would sacrifice herself to become the robotic slave of MECHA Sally, Archie Sonic's biggest mistake. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is the biggest mistake of Archie Sonic. Why? Well, let me rewind the clock back a bit and share some much needed context to understand where I'm coming from with this. During the 2000s, Archie Sonic would experience a decline in quality due to multiple bad creative choices, and it resulted in a comic far more interested in soap opera-esque drama instead of an action-adventure comic with a dash of soap opera drama. It needed a turnaround, and soon. And that turnaround would come with the introduction of a new head writer, and a man with a very nice beard. Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Flynn! Cue the angelic choir and appropriate lighting, please. Yeah, there you go. That works. Ian Flynn is more or less responsible for all the things that are fantastic about Sonic the Hedgehog nowadays. His writing is mostly fun and energetic. The creative choices he would make would turn this comic right around. He wasn't the only one working on it, of course. You had others such as Tracy Yardley, who had some excellent artwork to bring to the series. But needless to say that Ian Flynn and his team cleaned house, removing or concluding story threads that didn't make sense, setting up new storylines that would be some of the best in the series, such as Hedgehog Havoc and Iron Dominion, making boring as dishwater characters more interesting, and finally killing off Tommy Turtle. Rot in hell, you miserable little. So when Iron Dominion concluded, there were some smaller stories setting up the next arc. Ixis Nagus, along with his apprentice Jeffrey St. John, would attempt to take over New Mobotropolis. All while Dr. Eggman, who recovered from his insanity during the Iron Dominion arc, was setting up for something big for the 225th issue of the comic. This would be the launch of the Death Egg Mark II and initiating Operation Clean Sweep, a complete reset of the world in an attempt to roboticize it. But not before Sally is shot several times during a battle on the station before everything turns to white. Everything up to this moment seems really interesting, dramatic, and a follow-through of other issues of the comic. So, what was next? Well, that would be Sonic Genesis, which was a throwback to older Sonic titles on the Sega Genesis, and alright, I'm just gonna say it was a complete waste of 4 darn issues. I get it, it was Sonic's 20th anniversary at the time, but seriously, you couldn't have done something more interesting here. And now we're back to your regularly scheduled Hedgehog program, but rewound by a couple minutes. Sonic averts Sally's death by off-screen cannon fire, and we now come face to face with Dr. Eggman, who reveals his new plan to roboticize the entire planet. As the Genesis arc reset everything, it ended up removing the anti-roboticizing spell from the alien race known as the BEM. This is actually one of the first problems with MECHA Sally, the flimsy reasoning behind the transformation. I'm not opposed to removing the anti-roboticizing spell from the BEM, it was quite frankly dumb and kind of ruined the whole purpose of Dr. Eggman, but also came out of nowhere. It was the original intention of the Genesis wave for Dr. Eggman to remake the world and then roboticize it. When that failed and the world was returned back to its original state, Why did it change this one thing and not anything else? Also, I know there's such things as backup plans, but this is said to be Phase 2, meaning, did Dr. Eggman really expect Sonic to win during Genesis? I get it, he views Sonic as a factor of chaos, but seriously, this entire thing feels like this. Oh, by the way, I had this other plan the whole time, even though the other plan was the one that was supposed to work, and I did not hint to the audience that this other plan was possible as well. Also, the undoing reset of the world turned back everything except this one thing.
How are you the main villain again?
Shut up, Snively. It feels like this moment was a forced twist to justify both the conflict and resolution, via self-sacrifice from Sally, with not much in terms of hints or logical reasoning to the audience. But, regardless, we ended up with Mecha Sally. So, how did the audience take it? Would you be surprised if I said not well? This creative choice has all the signs of not understanding your audience. It's really a difficult thing to balance, especially with a long-running comic book like Sonic. But in the creative world, you have to balance between doing things you as a creative want to do and what your audience wants to see. Mecha Sally was something I doubt at this point in the comics history folks really wanted to see, for various reasons. One of the chief ones that I recall was the audience was just getting used to seeing Sonic and Sally back together again as a romantic couple after a long absence. The aforementioned slap that discontinued Sonic and Sally as a romantic relationship, with Sonic moving on to other love interests such as Fiona Fox. Sonic and Sally were always meant to be together. In this continuity, because especially considering it's based on Sonic's Satayam, you trigger happy shippers. Anyway, it felt unnecessary and downright cruel to an audience used to seeing these two together. And not even 8 issues later after their first date, we now had the two separated once more. It feels like someone being given a treat for all the trouble they've gone through, but just as they were about to enjoy said treat, the person reaches in their mouth and forcibly removes said treat. Gross, but, you know, the analogy works. I think it heavily contributed to the reaction at the time, and considering they had the whole Isis Nagus thing trying to take over, you know, New Bobotropolis and all that, they could have focused on that and Mecha Sally didn't need to show up in a scenario exempting when worlds collide and the whole Super Genesis Wave thing, until 250, then have it run for 12 issues in the main series with that additional 4-issue arc in Sonic Universe, and I think the reaction would have been better, but unfortunately, that's not what happened. This was actually an issue with the whole character of Mecha Sally. For how long she lasted, which, side note, while not appearing in every issue of the comic, it was the status quo for 17 issues of the mainline series, with 4 or more depending on if we count certain arcs of Sonic Universe, for a combined total of 20-something issues. Way too long for a change like this. She didn't really contribute much outside of being one of Dr. Eggman's main lackeys and a source of emotional turmoil for those Sally knew, such as Sonic and Monkey Cayenne. But I don't know, if you're making a major change to a character like Sally to become a robotic slave of Dr. Eggman, have her control her own army or something like that, just something more interesting. Cause what we ended up with was boring as dishwater, and considering all the trouble that we went through to have her, this was just not worth it. There's one last reason I want to discuss, and it's one that's not really easily readable without the benefit of hindsight. The transformation of Sally into Mecha Sally was the last time we would see this version of the character. This wasn't originally meant to be, according to Ben Bates via Mobius Encyclopedia, although as an easily editable wiki, take this with some salt, the change was going to last up to Sonic 250, with the new version of the character that we ended up with having in the Super Genesis wave later revealed to be a sleeper agent for Dr. Eggman, and then Sonic would have to go find the original Sally. Now, I on one hand am very happy this never happened, because yeah, it would have probably made an already irritated audience even worse. On the other hand, we would never see the version of Sally Acorn again who was de jure the mascot of Satayam, and we experienced their trials and tribulations for decades. That's why MECHA Sally is such a mistake and one of the biggest Archie Sonic ever made. It had flimsy reasoning for existing, an unwanted change to a beloved character, not even being really worth it, occurring for far too long, but unintentionally the last time we would ever see this version of a beloved character. Don't get me wrong, I'm very happy that we did get Sally back, no sleeper agent or anything, in the post-Super Genesis wave continuity. And of course she lives on in fan projects such as Archie Sonic Online. But at least officially, she was still stuck as that robotic slave to Dr. Eggman. Oh well, I'm sure everyone learned their lesson from this and didn't do anything else that was controversial, ran on for too long, and involved robots. Oh no. Oh no. No! Anyway, thank you so much for watching this episode of Jordan's Soapbox, and I'll see you all next episode. I have a feeling I want to smash some robots right now. Hey Gummy Bears! Thanks so much for watching this episode of Jordan's Soapbox. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications via that bell so you don't miss the next ill-advised video. Follow us on our various social media, which includes a Discord server where you can hang out with me and vote on episode topics, and consider supporting us on Patreon and Ko-Fi. That about covers it. Until next time.